Welcome everyone to the presentation on what is Procure to Pay optimization. We have with us Kevin, who is from JK Data Analytics, who will give you the basis of much of his work over the next 50 minutes. Let's go to the next slide. But first, let me give you a quick overview of ISS. As many of you might be aware, ISS Group has been around since 1986, has been extensively involved in ERP, in CRM, and e-commerce, with extensive knowledge in the whole area of procure to pay and order to cash. So as part of this, we are working to develop better technologies for leveraging your business process improvement. Next slide. The primary objective of ISS, the solutions and the consulting we do, is to help our customers improve the flow and control of their business processes, especially those where any kind of corporate review and approval activities are required in order to perform an automatic transaction action. Next. But it is my real pleasure here to introduce Dr. Kevin McCormick, a co-founder of JK Data Analytics, with extensive experience in the whole area of supply chain and network collaboration and business intelligence, and has helped a number of customers help them learn how to improve their supply chain, both on demand and order side. So with no further ado, I introduce Dr. McCormick. You're on.
Thanks, Bruce. Next slide. What we're going to talk about today is a definition of procure to pay. And in that definition, what are the business processes involved and what are the activities and how can you improve these activities? And the reason we do this is there is a lot of confusion about what's included in procure to pay. A lot of people think it's accounts payable or maybe it's just procurement. And our answer to that is it's all of them. So we'll describe what that is. And we're going to describe some improvement strategies that will help you improve the entire process and the benefits you can realize from these. So conclusions, questions will come at the end. Next slide. Now this is our holistic view of procure to pay. It's a process map, and let me explain it a little bit. On the top are the customers of procure to pay: projects, and project managers, maintenance and maintenance managers, and operations people. These are people that request procurement activities and supplies and materials and expect the bills to be paid. So that's an important area. Now the core processes are down in the next layer, starting with forecast, plan, and coordinate. Need clarification, specification, sourcing decision, contract PO generation, receiving materials and documents, and the settle and pay. Now you can see that these processes span several traditional functions. Purchasing, for example, would be involved in sourcing decisions and contract generation, the warehouse and receiving group and the receive material, and accounts payable and settle and pay. One question is, who does forecast, plan, and coordinate? It's one we always come up against. So it's a cross-functional, end-to-end business process that you want to attack in that way, rather than in the functions of procurement and warehousing. The main opportunities are collaboration and working together to improve the process. Now you see supplier need fulfillment. The suppliers are in here as well. Now, but you see that there's probably 300 or maybe 3,000 suppliers, depending on your business. And in typical business, it's probably 12 to 1,500. So there's a lot of suppliers in that green square, and you have to take them into account and how they interact with the procure-to-pay process. You also see the enablers. Now these are important processes, but they're not involved in the core process of procure-to-pay. Finance, legal, HR, IT, all of these are key enablers to make this work and must be looked at and looked to make it work, but they're not in the core process that adds value to procure-to-pay. So this is how we encourage people to view procure-to-pay and attack procure-to-pay. Next. Now, this is basically our approach. First, moving beyond procurement into a more supply chain solution, which I just mentioned about that picture. Finding ways to improve efficiency in the procure-to-pay business cycle. We have some suggestions and ideas and things that we've done over the years to consider. There's special challenges for maintenance and repair and operations. Two very different dynamics. Operations has a continuous process or intermittent processes, but repetitive purchases, and their need is reliability. And maintenance and repair, they don't have that as much. They have long relationships with suppliers, and they need to stock parts, and suppliers need to stock parts and be responsive when they're needed, but it's really not known when they're going to be needed. So two very different areas that you need to think about. Projects being very different from all of those. Setting up proper key performance metrics for your company and your suppliers is an important thing we'll cover. And managing the procure-to-pay cycle in your ERP system. This is something that many people either forget about or think that, well, our ERP system covers it, and that's not the case. The ERP area leaves out a lot of procure-to-pay processes that I showed in the first example. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll talk about finding ways to improve your financial benefits. Once you improve the process, how do you turn those into financial benefits to the bottom line? Okay, next. Well, the first thing we'll talk about are metrics, key measures in the procure-to-pay process at this level. So the end process, way to the right here on settle to pay, that's where we usually start. This is the place where accounts payable gets blamed for all the problems that everybody else creates. That's what I hear a lot from AP managers. Let's start with invoice to pay cycle time. Now that's a key metric from the time an invoice is received from the supplier to the time the supplier collects the cash. Very important to suppliers, very important to companies. It's probably the most abused area where accounts payable is told, oh, extend it out 45 days or 90 days. A lot of opportunity here, but a lot of politics in here. Percent first pass pay, that's another key process quality metric. And what it means is when an invoice comes in to the received materials and documents box, how often is it compared to the PO and then paid? That's first pass pay. Invoice comes in, it's compared, it's okayed, and the payment is issued. I mean, there may be a 30-day delay before the cash is issued, but that's a first pass pay. The best in class, best practice is around 80 to 85%, and most companies are in the 30 or 40% area. Why is that? That's a horrible statistic. 30% first pass pay. That means somebody is either not generating the purchase order properly or not supplying the invoice properly or both. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Now, discounts taken. Most suppliers offer discounts on early payment, and many companies aren't able to do that since they can't get a first pass pay above 30% or 40%. So there's a lot of financial, maybe 1 or 2 or 3% in that area. POs per FTE. How many POs do you generate per full-time equivalent employee in this purchasing decision here, or purchasing process, in this procurement process, and in this receipt process? So that's a key metric for efficiency. And the cost per PO, that's one that's a global measure, and that's used in e-commerce, that's used in SAP type transactions that are automatically generated from inventory, that's used in manual purchases. So these are significant key overall process metrics. Let's talk about some of the diagnostic measures deeper in the process, such as supplier performance scorecards. How are each of your suppliers performing on percent invoice errors, percent on time, percent perfect order? How many actually supply what is being asked of them in the time that's required? Best in class is around maybe 80%, maybe 85%, but most companies, again, are in the 30 or 40% area. Why? Let's go to the back end. You see percent planned versus actual. Basically, how accurate is the forecast? The forecast sets up the resources in the rest of the process. So many people don't even track plan versus actual. Many people don't even have a forecast. So if you don't have a forecast, how do you organize the rest of the process? It's an interesting area. Percent spend managed, percent off contract, and number of suppliers in the 80% spend chunk. These are all procurement area metrics that indicate how well or how efficient procurement is in need clarification and sourcing decision. Many companies are in the 60 to 70% spend managed area. These are best-in-class companies. Most are in the 30%, maybe 40%. Percent off contract. This is maverick buying, people that are buying outside of what the corporation requires them to buy or request them to buy. That can be anywhere between 20 and 30 to maybe 60%, depending on how mature the procurement area is. So there's a lot of diagnostic contributory metrics in here as well. Numbers of transactions per channel. This is up by the customers. This is a key one for customer satisfaction. How many transactions are in the manual procure to pay process where the purchasing people have to get involved and define the need and find the vendor and write the purchase order? That's a very expensive process. So getting it out of there and into a P-card process is a big opportunity for many people. And the cost per PO goes from $250 or $500 a PO down to $5 or $10 a PO, a significant savings. So the transaction analysis and placing the capabilities in the customer's hands to purchase the right thing through the right transaction is critical, and critical to user satisfaction. It's what the users want. They want what they want when they want it. They don't quite care how it goes through Procure to Pay, other than they want it quickly. So these are just some high-level metrics to consider and talk about as we go through. Next slide. Now there's a next level down from these metrics that's used for diagnostics and process improvement. You can see under Procure to Pay cycle times, for example, you want to break it out into, on level 2, by material group, by supplier, by plant, by user, by buyer, to actually see where the issues are and where the differences are. There's there's a large variability in these numbers. Let's say you're at a 30-day procure-to-pay cycle time, and you get in there and you find some people are getting through in 7 to 10 days, some people are in the 40 to 50 days, and you want to find out why. Some plants are like that, some users like that, some material groups like that. So it's a very key diagnostic capability to be able to cut and analyze the metrics in this way. Percent first pass pay, the same. What suppliers are realizing a percent first pass pay, maybe in an 80 or 90% area, and what are in the 20% area, and investigate and find out why. So it's basic process improvement using these analytic diagnostic methods. So next slide. This is just the third level down. You see level 3 teams. These are metrics that relate to the upper levels, but not directly. They're indirect impact on percent first pass pay, for example. The release team, how well do they take a requirement and generate a purchase order, and how clear is that purchase order? Does it have the right price on it? Does it have the the right material spec? And then when the invoice comes in, it'll match and you get a first pass pay. So that's a very critical metric. Tools and analysis is the data clean. This one I see often is that the ERP systems are somewhere between 5 to 20% dirty data, meaning names misspelled, duplicates, missing fields, all that data. Most of that data is manually entered, and when a person gets involved and manually enters something, you've got a 1 in 35 chance of error. So most of the data systems, the good ones are less than 10% dirty data, including dupes, and the bad ones are 20, 30% in that area. So this is a very critical infrastructure metric that's needed to make this work. Now, the policy and procedure team, how well are the procedures and policies written? How simple are they? How implementable are they? And how aligned to the business process are they? Are they understood? Are they used? The MDM team, the master data management, how well is the material master set up? The e-catalog team, how many suppliers are enabled with e-catalogs so that you can have the self-service e-catalog environment? So these are critical level 3 metrics that you need to put in place as well that give the team the direction, some feedback on how they're doing and what their contribution is to the channel mix, for example. And down here on the bottom, you see the barriers. This is just some things we've seen that are barriers to successfully improving or optimizing procure-to-pay. Senior leadership actively participating in improving procure-to-pay. There's decisions that need to be made in the procure-to-pay process that really have a dramatic impact on efficiency, such as approval levels. How many levels of approval for how many dollars in the purchase rec? There's a lot of companies that I visit and we work on that have a $500 or $1,000 level on procurement requisitions. They assign that to a manager that manages a $500 million business, which seems to be a little bit of a contradiction, and adds maybe a week to 10 days in the approval process, in the procure-to-pay process. So there's a lot of realignment that can work and make procure-to-pay much better, easier, faster, cheaper that senior leadership has to do. So that's a key one. Process owners, and have the process owners participate and collaborate and cooperate and work together. The functions are going to be there, and the functional leaders are going to be there. They have to see this as a process across the functions and have to work together to make the trade-offs happen. So, and the clean data, obviously I've talked about that one already. So these are just some barriers we've seen that have to be taken into account. Next slide. Okay, let's get into the first level of diagnostics and on the accounts payable, the settle and pay area. This is a typical printout of a group of purchases, a group of invoices and payments that have come in. Let's look through what they have here. And this is from a well-established company that has been in the business quite a while and thought their procure-to-pay process was pretty good. And it says 16.5% have no issues. That's a first-pass pay number. 16.5% are at first-pass pay. Now, I mentioned best-in-class is 80 to 85%. 16.5%. So what's the problem? 20.3% not shown as received, meaning what's on the purchase order is not what has been received referencing that purchase order. So somebody got it wrong, either the supplier when they sent the invoice in, or the purchasing department, or the requisitioner, but somebody got it wrong. 11.8% the PO on invoice not in the system, so the supplier sends an invoice in with a PO number that is not in the purchasing system, and accounts payable can't pay it if they don't have a PO to reference. 9.1% invoice line items not on a PO. So the invoice has detailed line items and the PO doesn't. Well, that could be the PO has a general description of, please give me these items for this pump, and the invoice has the specific items listed by line item on maybe the 12 parts you need for the pump. So how a PO is written can really impact this. Most of the time it's an error in the PO. 9.7% need PM approval. So they have an invoice and they have rules that make this invoice not a first pass pay candidate, and they have to send it to somebody for final approval. So this just gives you a sense of what the accounts payable people see and where the issue occurs. It doesn't occur in accounts payable. They're just detecting the issue and then forwarding it back to people that need to correct it. So it's just a good diagnostic to start with. Next slide. Now, we look at cycle time, and we break up cycle time in Procure to Pay into these two buckets to do some diagnostics. You see, from where the requisition is submitted to when the PO is issued. This is a critical process. It's internal, and it's driven by rules, regulations, approvals, those kind of things. You see cycle time, 5 to 60 days, 60-plus days. These are what we've seen. These are not numbers that we've just made up for this presentation. This is an actual document from an analysis we did with a chemical company. 5 to 60 days. What's the problem? How does it get through in 5 days and sits around for 60-plus days? This is an approval issue. It sits on somebody's desk and sits on somebody else's desk, or in their work queue, in their electronic desk. There has to be discussion about it. Maybe the authority to write that purchase requisition is not at the right level, and it has to get submitted up a couple levels to somebody that quite doesn't understand what the person is trying to require and trying to request, and has to go back down and talk to that person, which says the authority alignment is not there. If somebody requires it and has the budget to buy it and is the knowledgeable one to do it, they should be able to do it without even approvals. So this is a internal area that we work on. Now, the external area, from invoice received to invoice paid, from 30 to 150 days, these are the problems that occur. This is where accounts payable gathers all the issues that are created in the upstream area. that were mentioned in the previous slide. Things like the purchase order doesn't match the invoice has a PO number on it that doesn't exist, all these kind of things. So you can see there's a lot of time in here. And when you have a lot of time, you can spend a lot of money and have a lot of people working on it. And somebody's waiting for that material, part, or service. So it's an issue that impacts the manufacturing process as well, the project process, the maintenance process. Okay, so this is the first level of cycle time analysis we do. Next slide. Now this is just an example of what some of our results look like. We put together a frequency distribution diagram or a histogram, whatever you want to call it. It shows the number of, in this case, requirements to requisition cycle times, the numbers of requisitions that took the cycle time on the lower part of the graph, and the red curve is the before, and the black curve is the after. So we try to get rid of stupid pet tricks, we call it. Change the rules, get rid of the problems that are driving these purchases out to the right. And so let's just review the red histogram, the red graph. You can see the 1 to 2 days, very best case, that doesn't exist on the red graph. 3 to 5 days, very few ever come in at that. Very few. And when you look at the black graph, you can see that is the average. That is the bulk of the purchase orders come through in 3 to 5 days. So let's look at the bulk of purchase orders on the red graph, 10 to 15 days. That's where the high number of purchase orders come through. 3 to 5 times what the black graph would show. So what's the problem here? Here's some things that we've seen. One is they have all buyer-assisted POs, meaning they're manual. All the POs, all the purchase order requests have to go through purchasing. They have to be discussed. They have to have a PO generated and has to get approved. So they're all buyer-assisted. That makes a lot of busy purchasing buyers. So very few structured or auto POs that would supply the maintenance department and having the parts they use replenished and replaced. So that's a big deal. No P-card usage. No, a purchasing card allows the end user to go directly to the vendor that's pre-approved, purchase what they want, get what they want, and have the purchasing card pay for it, and then the vendor submits an electronic invoice into accounting. So in this case, no P-cards were used. And in the black graph, we'll show you how the P-card channel impacted that. In the red graph, you had too many suppliers, too many choices, too many competing channels. And there's a lack of communication, clarity, and errors in the red graph. So this type of analysis really starts to show us what are the problems, what are the issues, and how we can attack this. And this is just a small example of the requirements to requisition cycle time analysis. So next graph. Yeah, there you go. This is the buying channel matrix. So what we do next is look at what are the channels to purchase materials and services through Procure to Pay, and what should they be? Now you see the transaction volume on the vertical and values of goods and services on the horizontal. This is just these are just 2 dimensions of this. And the next 2 slides will show you a couple other dimensions. But let's talk about this graph a little bit. In the upper right-hand corner are structured POs. These are things that already have contracts, framework agreements in place. You're going to repetitively buy this stuff from the same supplier. And the ERP system is going to automatically generate the purchase order, and that makes it a first-pass pay candidate when it gets to account payable. So these are primarily maintenance-type contracts and agreements. And most of maintenance should be covered under this. Let's say 80% of maintenance should be in there. And it costs $50 to $75 a purchase order to purchase and set up all this IT system that works and organize the material master and the agreements. Well, once it's set up, it works really well. Now, if you go over to the left, you see e-catalogs, and this is new in the last 10 to 15 years, where vendors can provide a portal, a website where somebody can get on, purchase the material they want, and have it shipped to them, and pay with a P card, and the company is billed. Now, people like Staples and Office Max, people like that, have really attacked this area, and several major vendors that supply equipment have attacked this area. It's very prevalent, but it creates almost approved maverick spend, but it's $15 to $25 a PO, and many end users really like it because it gives them access quickly to what they want, and it's paid for and controlled through the P card. So this is a good area. Now, a little bit below that, P cards, $5 to $10 a PO. You can see quite a reduction from the $50 a PO, and doesn't require a lot of infrastructure. There's quite a few vendors out there that do this and do it well, and it's not used as often as it should. So this is a very end-user focused approach to giving the end user the power and authority and responsibility to buy what they need and get it billed to the company. And if your budget control systems are in order, it works pretty well. So buyer-assisted purchase orders over here on the right-hand side, these are ones that purchasing is required to help develop the need, develop the spec, select the vendor, generate the purchase order, and I've got a low conservative price of $120 to $140. It gets $250 to $500 in less mature organizations. So this price over here varies quite a bit, but you can see the differences in your channel and how putting the right materials and the right authority and the right capabilities in place can really impact your cycle time and your cost of generating a PO and your end user satisfaction as well. Okay, next slide. Now this is another chart that we use to help explain why some material goes into a structure PO and other material goes into a P card system. And the horizontal axis is complexity. How complex is the material and purchases? Highly complex, for example, is a buyer-assisted area. And it could be complex in contract, or it could be complex in the specifications, but it needs purchasing to assist you in it. And the lower complexity in the lower left-hand side, definitely a P card usage. That's why office materials and supplies really falls into that a lot. Then you see on the vertical, non-stocked, staged, and stocked. Now these are levels of how management has classified this material and organized the supply of this material. Non-stocked ad hoc means you use it occasionally, it's not critical enough to store on site, and you probably don't have any vendor managed inventory, you just need it, so go get it with a P card. If you look at the upper quadrant on stocked, you see it's with a P card, but it's vendor managed inventory. It's stocked in either the materials on site or it's in a vendor site that's nearby, and you have an agreement with the vendors to quickly supply what you need. So the low complexity really lends itself to a P card, or in the non-stock stage, it's a non-PO, meaning you've already identified you're going to need it. The vendors agreed to supply it. You have it staged nearby, and you don't even need a PO. You need to get it quickly, and you get an invoice and you pay it. Now, this is not really a very popular channel, but it's done quite a bit. You can see it goes over to e-catalog, and then structured PO, the more complex it gets. So this kind of helps you think through what materials and what vendors, and it's basically driven by the need of the user and where they fit. Next slide. Now this is the last one in the channel analysis. You can see the vertical has setup and maintenance cost between low, medium, and high, and the ease of use on the horizontal from high to low. And you can see where each channel fits. Buyer assisted, for example, is easy to use. No, it's the reverse. Is not very easy to use. Buyer assisted is a pain in the neck. And the setup cost is high. You have to hire the buyer, and nobody ever has enough of them, and they're always too busy, so the ease of use is very low. That's how it works. You can see that a P card is high ease of use and medium to low on the setup cost, medium on a vendor managed inventory, and a low on a point of use P card. So this kind of helps you just think through what you're putting in the channel, and does it fit this purpose here, and how much money you're going to spend to set it up. Okay, next slide. Now let's talk about kind of a high-level scorecard and benchmarking of the Procure to Pay process. This is a scorecard format that I borrowed from Supply Chain Council and modified it for Procure to Pay. And you see the level 1 metrics. These are the ones we talked about in the overview Procure to Pay slide: percent first pass pay, percent planned versus actual. These are all reliability areas: responsiveness, request to cycle time, request to PO cycle time, sorry, cost, flexibility, and then asset management. So you can see the benchmarks, performance versus competition, where parity says you're kind of in the average. Advantage meaning you're a little bit above, and superior means you're in the best in class. So this helps you to gather your metrics at the beginning and place them in here to see where you stand. For example, first pass pay, if you're 30%, you're way below parity. You have a big issue here. Plan versus actual, if you're not doing any forecasting, you'll have no idea what that's going to be. But you're generally going to be 30 to 40% if you're just beginning. Request to PO cycle time, you see 7 to 20 days. I just put it in as an example. And you can see where you sit in the benchmarks. You're way above parity. So anyway, this helps to get a handle on where you're at versus the competition or the rest of the market, or and how far you need to go. You're not going to get there in one fell swoop, one project, and overnight if you're way down on the 30% first pass pay, but you can get it from 30% to 85% in a year or two with some investment. So down on the bottom you see PO per FTE, and you can see 1,156. That's the number of POs per FTEs they get through the system. And you can see the parity, advantage, and superior. Now these numbers are really have a lot of variability in them. I've seen upwards to 5,000 POs per FTE in there, with something that can really be automated with a structured PO and a lot of P card usage. And so you got to take this with a grain of salt and really look at the details. But you can see from here you're low at 1156. You're really on the low end, so you need to work on that. And if you add more people, you see that number goes down. So adding more buyers is not the solution. Percent spend managed. This is one that really tells you how far along your procurement and your strategic sourcing program, for example, is. And turns, working capital turns, how often you turn your inventory. I've seen people start out at 1 or 2 turns a year and go to 12 turns a year by increasing the velocity of their maintenance inventory, for example. So this is a good way to get started, to find your metrics, put them in here. Kind of shows you where you're at and where you need to go and how far you have to go. Next slide. So the benefits of improvements. You can see there's a reduction of cost. You can see some of the metrics I just showed you. And those profits go right to the bottom line. Users get what they want, and user satisfaction goes up. So these are sometimes considered fuzzy benefits, but I think user satisfaction and procure-to-pay process is critical. And users only buy from approved suppliers on contract prices. This is really a big deal. If you have 10 suppliers and 3 of them you've already negotiated contracts and you know what the pricing is, and the pricing is usually 5 to 7% lower than the rest of the people in the buying segment. So if they buy on contract from these suppliers, they're going to be 5 to 7% less than the non-contract suppliers. So this is where the savings start to accrue. Buyers get tools to improve buying and material services. So buyers get information. Buyers get cooperation and collaboration from the upstream people generating requisitions. This is what happens when you organize your procure-to-pay process in this way. Let's get down to some numbers here. Procure-to-pay efficiency increased by 20 to 30%. You can see the numbers of POs per FTE, for example, the cycle time, the cost of a PO. All of these are really impacted by some of these strategies I proposed, and your procure-to-pay costs go down by 30 to 50%. So none of these are trivial and can be substantial. Next slide. Now this is a scorecard that I've borrowed from Aberdeen Group, who does a lot of research in this area, and I thought it really told the story that I'm trying to tell here. You can see requisition to order cost. These are the upfront cost. $51 per PO before, $26 after an e-procurement type effort, which is basically organizing your channels and putting the right things in the right channel. Requisition to order cycle time, 9.6 days to 3.4 days. Well, 9.6 days wasn't that bad before, but 3.4 days is obviously much better. Spend under management, 42 to 60%, so there's more suppliers under contract, and when they go from being non-contract to under contract, you usually have a savings in there, an increase in the performance as well. And percent maverick spend is reduced accordingly. So this really gives you a top line number. If you generate 10,000 purchase requisitions a year, which is a kind of medium-sized company, so 10,000 times $25, that's quite a bit of money to put in your pocket, and that's just the administrative cost. Okay, next slide. All right, and Bruce, back to you.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you very much. I think you've done an excellent job of laying the groundwork for this. We just hope that anyone who has an interest to do some follow-up will be glad to talk to you. I want to point out that ISS Group partners with Kevin and JK at Data Analytics to help you find ways to manage your Procure To Pay processes. We also partner very closely with Max Recall, which is a data repository to capture not just reports but all of the documents and include them as part of an approvals process. We are also able to provide the inquiry and reporting tools and the template metrics reports to get the information that you need. And at top of the line, we provide the advanced approval and routing tools to help dramatically shorten your Procure To Pay cycle times and to be able to get those 60% improvement in your Procure To Pay process costs. So if you would like any further information on any of these issues, give a call or drop a line, and we will make sure that the right people get in touch with you to try to deal with your issues. Okay, next slide. So here's some contact information. Just remember, if you have any questions or you'd like to get a copy of this presentation for yourself or a white paper that was put together by Dr. McCormick discussing in a more detailed way the Procure To Pay processes, please give a call. And other than that, thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at further webcasts. And make sure to look at our website to see if there's any further details and communications that might be of interest to you. Thank you very much.